Hello, viewers. Today we have a special guest, Norm, who's going to be tasting 7 varieties of rice wine that I've brewed. I'm pretty excited about this because Norm is an expert wine taster, and he's brewed his own wines at home, so he'll be forgiving, and that's why I'm hoping anyhow. So I hope he has Norm. Let's get right into it.
I look forward to it.
And let's start with let's go in sequence. Let's start with this one.
Okay, so this is number 58. I'm just gonna start with a couple of sips and my impressions. Okay.
Very good.
It's a little sweet. It's not what I would call dry. I think if I were to estimate the alcohol content, I think it's about 9%. Not quite a 10. It's probably a 9. I think the reason for that is I'm just tasting way too much sugar. Well, sure. I don't want to say way too much because I don't know what is the good amount of sugar. So it does taste very sweet and not very tart.
Okay.
All right. So that's 58, and I'm gonna do a second round of impressions as well. If you so desire. Okay.
Please.
All right. Number 59. This is a little bit red. This one's not as sugary and not as sweet as a 58. It's a lot more tart. It's also a little bit flat. It's not. There's no carbonation whatsoever, and there wasn't any carbonation in 58. I think it's not quite as sweet, but I'm not quite getting as much alcohol as... I'd say this one's probably around like 9% as well, but it's not as sweet. Yeah. Okay. So, got number 64. All right. Number 64, it's very... it's clear. It's about the color of white wine. So... This one feels a little bit more alcoholic, and it sits on your palate longer, and that's when you can really tell that there's a lot of alcohol in here. It's because when you swallow it, you could feel that thing coming back up, and it's all alcohol. I think this is at least a good 12 or 13%. It's up there, yeah. All right. Number 67. It's not clear. It's looks like there's a little bit of sedimentation. Wow. I'm getting a lot of carbonation in this one, and I'm getting like a huge waves of either like wheat or barley, like that kind of thing. Very grainy. I put the alcohol content probably about the same as the previous one, maybe around 10 or 11%. The only thing is, it also has this really yeasty flavor. It's like I don't know. It's kind of like it's a little bit like there's like a little bit of beer flavor in there, like maybe like bread flavored. Yeah. Okay. And not a lot of sweetness. It's mostly tart with a little bit of bitter. All right, number 68. This one's This one's also got sedimentation, not clear. It's the color is a little bit darker than 67. All right, let's have a taste. I'm getting not a lot, but I'm getting a little bit of carbonation. And this has the same characteristic as one of the previous ones, that sits on your palate a little bit longer. It also feels a little bit more alcoholic, probably around 11 to 12%. I think not quite as strong as like a regular like red wine, but it's up there. And also, it has the same characteristic as 67 with that really bready, yeasty flavor. Um, and the interesting thing about this one is that you can tell that the texture is a little bit more thick than 67, even though the two look, like fairly similar in terms of consistency, but this one is thicker. It's got a lot more viscosity. All right. All right, now we got number 71. It's got a very similar color as number 67. Let's have a taste. Very, very similar texture to number 67, but it's got, I feel like, and for this one, the bitters are a lot more highlighted. I'm getting a lot of bitter on the palate, and the thing about like this bitter that makes it different from one of the previous ones is that this bitter sits on your palate. It like stays there. It's still on my palate right now. And also, there's a fair bit of carbonation, I think. Yeah, and I think for number 71, like bitter is, I would say, is like the predominant defining flavor. All right, number 72 looks like it's got very similar texture or color as number 68, but 68 was very thick, so let's see this one. I think the alcohol content of 72 is the highest among the ones that I've tasted. I forgot to mention, I think 71 and 68, also about 10% alcohol. But 72, this one feels like it's at least 13. Yeah, this one, it also has this like a soybean flavor. I'm not sure if you know what I mean, but it's when it goes down, I'm reminded of soybeans.
Okay.
And the texture, not as thick as number 68. I'd say it's about the same texture as maybe 67 or 71. But I think the defining characteristic of 72 is that the alcohol content is a little on the high side. Okay, so that's round one of impressions.
Very good. I think you captured a lot of important information. I didn't tell you anything about these.
Uh-huh.
You just saw the numbers and drank them. Maybe for a second round, can I tell you what it is that you're drinking?
Sure.
The difference between them?
Sure. Let's guess from left to right, number 58.
This was a 3-stage recipe.
Mm-hmm.
I did feel the fermentation wasn't complete on that one. You tasted a lot of sugar in that.
Yeah. And I noticed for these 3 clear ones, the texture compared to the 4 not clear ones. I mean, you could tell that it's been filtered, it's been worked with, and when it goes down, you're not getting a lot of like sedimentation. In fact, there's no sedimentation. And when you drink these, when you swallow it slowly, you can actually feel like little pellets and little sediments in the back of your throat there.
Yeah.
But for these, the texture is a lot just like bottled wine or like red wine from the store. Yeah. So you said this is a 3-stage fermentation.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, that one, it reminds me a lot of apple cider.
Okay.
But not like Angry Orchard or anything, but just like homemade apple cider, homemade hard cider. Very nice flavors. I do like that it has a little bit of sweetness, but it's just not very high in alcohol content. But neither is hard cider. So.
So the next one, 59.
Yep.
That was brewed with red yeast rice.
Mm-hmm.
So there's actually a lot of yeast in this brew.
Okay.
probably too much.
I think
I was
that's
experimenting with the recipe.
I think that's where I think the bitterness I think is where that comes from. It's not unpleasant, but you can tell it's a little bit heavier than the first one. Yeah. But otherwise, very nice flavors, very nice bread flavors in that one. Okay.
And the next one, 64, is a 2-stage brew that I brewed with my own fermentation starter, Nuruk.
Mm-hmm.
It was a wheat cake that I grew mold on, and I hung it up in the window in the sun to dry, and that was the enzyme to change the starch to sugar.
Okay.
So this one is especially homemade.
All right. Yeah, also a lot of sweetness. Similar sweetness as 58, but a lot more like bread flavors. You know, it's very, very bready. It has sort of the same aftertaste as certain kinds of beer, I think, like wheat beer, or like Hefeweizen, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's got some aftertaste. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Right. Number 67.
Okay, so 67 is a 5-stage brew. So now we've moved on to the unfiltered rice wines.
All right. 5-stage brew, 67. Yeah, it's this is the one where the alcohol like sits on your palate a little bit, and it's got some bitters, and it does have some like the yeast bread flavor too. Overall, not a bad flavor. The carbonation in this one, it's there, but it's not like overwhelming. So it's decent amount of carbonation.
And that's about 3 months. 3 months from bottling,
Mm-hmm.
which is getting to the end of the life cycle. It tends to get a little more sour in the fridge after that time. So I'm glad you got to try it.
All right.
And that is something I was hoping for. That with 5 stages, I was hoping for more alcohol.
Okay. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, could definitely taste the alcohol because I think sensation-wise, the aftertaste of alcohol is more like a feeling and not like an actual taste on your palate. So you feel it rushing back up. For the higher alcohol content ones, that's the feeling of alcohol in the drink. Yeah. So what about number 68?
So 68,
Mm-hmm.
that was brewed with persimmons.
Persimmons.
Yeah. Half-dried persimmons.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually very hard to strain,
Mm-hmm.
and you notice the texture right away.
Yeah. I'm getting sweetness, but I'm not getting any persimmon flavor. I'm not sure if that's good or bad news for you, but
the persimmons were delicious,
right?
But brewing with them ended up getting more of the texture than the flavor.
And that's what I'm saying. It's it does have a lot of sweetness to it, not as much as these earlier ones, but this is more of a you could tell that that there was a lot of fermentation done on it already. So you get this nice kind of interesting balance of palpable sweetness and a lot of alcohol. So it almost has a little bit of a mixed drink type of feel, but very, very minor. And I remember for this one, texture was kind of a thing, because I think this was one of the ones where you could feel it going down your throat. Yeah.
So I would categorize that one as on the weird end of my brewing spectrum.
Certainly,
but you're special. You get to drink it. I figured you could take it.
Right, number
71.
Mm-hmm.
So that was brewed with wormwood.
Wormwood, okay. Is that the absinthe wormwood?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's especially bitter, and you notice that right away.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'd say bitter is like the predominant flavor in here, but I'm also getting a lot of the alcohol flavor. I feel like the texture is not as like rough and thick as these two, or even this one. But there's I am getting a bit of carbonation. Yeah.
You didn't see me open them, but a lot of them did foam up a lot when I opened them.
Okay.
And the seventh one here, the last one, 72, is that was brewed with burdock.
Burdock. Okay.
Roasted burdock.
Okay. That's the plant with the really woody roots, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you can make tea out of the roasted burdock.
Maybe that's the plant flavor in there. Yeah. Pretty similar texture as like I think these two. Not as thick as 68, but it's definitely more carbonated. Yeah.
And the 71 and 72 are the same age.
Mm-hmm.
They're relatively young.
Mm-hmm.
Just a bottle a few weeks ago. So
okay.
That should hopefully taste a little fresher.
They all, in terms of freshness, I think they all taste about roughly comparable in terms of freshness, but you can definitely tell that they're in various stages of fermentation. Like I think with the earlier ones, you said that one's not very, not fermented all the way through.
Yeah, 50.
And I feel like these four, I feel like maybe 71 is fermented like all the way through, but the other three, I think there's still a little bit of, especially the persimmon one, that one's still got a little bit of sweetness to go. But the thing is, like, even if you were to ferment it really, really hard, it's not going to get anything above like 15 or 17. So, maybe it's already there. And I'm just getting the leftover sugars from,
Well, I really want to thank Norm for this analysis because
Thank you.
His palate has explained a lot of flavors in this I appreciate your insight into this.
Thanks for having me on your show.